Bai Gang sat in the infantry chariot, tremblingly pulled out the magazine for the third time, and checked the ammunition again, but this did not relieve his tension at all, so he went on to check other equipment. In fact, there are not many things to check. Apart from the Type 95 rifle and the Type 92 pistol allotted to Bai Gang, there is only 1 day's worth of rations, ammunition, and ammunition left. Although the new backpack has fully considered ergonomics, the ammunition of the entire backpack almost made his shoulders bleed when he got into the car. Fortunately, you don't need a backpack to walk too much in defensive operations, otherwise, it won't take long for the weight to be on your body, and you'll be too tired to fight. Bai Gang's condition was unbearable, and the other people in the cabin were not much better. Even the squad leader, who had participated in many actual battles, was also constantly wiping away sweat. But in fact, the temperature inside the car was only about 10 degrees at this time, and it could be said that it was cold and windy outside. The reason why everyone is so nervous is because everyone knows in their hearts that this mission is actually a desperate mission. The place is here, get ready to get off. The commander's voice suddenly sounded, and everyone in the shock shuddered. The squad leader finally wiped off the sweat dripping from his head, tightened his protective suit, put on a gas mask, buckled his helmet, and shouted with a trembling voice. "Wait! When you get off the car, follow me. Don't worry about anything, just go to the fence. Say it again, don't worry about anything you see, just go to the fence." Because he was wearing a gas mask, the squad leader's voice was a little murky, so he could only be as loud as possible. As soon as the squad leader finished speaking, the coach roared along. "Get off! Get off! Rush out!" The tailgate of the car opened with a bang, and the comrade in arms who were sitting beside the door rushed out. Before he could run a few steps, he was captured by a rapidly passing black shadow. He was taken aback by the sudden change, and then the roar of the squad leader behind him made Bai Gang's ears buzz. "Don't look stupid, rush out! Don't stop! Don't stop!" After receiving the order, Bai Gang's body reflexively stabbed his head out, and when he got out, he realized that there was a dark shadow outside Nima. Fortunately, the shadow did not attack him this time, so Bai Gang had time to carefully observe the surrounding environment. I don't know what kind of battle it went through on the ground outside the car, but there is actually a huge crater in front of the car. There are many corpses scattered around, both human and monsters. The acid rain, which contains a lot of radiation, keeps coming, which is why they wear protective clothing. The previous nuclear explosion has polluted the entire area. After this crater and further ahead is the position that Bai Gang and the others are going to reinforce a THRESTE concrete wall. Bai Gang just took 2 steps, and with a bang, something fell from the sky and smashed in front of him. The splashed debris made his neck hurt. He stretched out his hand and grabbed a piece of minced meat. It was nothing else that just hit the ground, it was the body of a comrade in arms swept away by the shadow before. A disfigured corpse torn apart. Looking up along the trajectory of the corpse's fall, I saw a hideous-looking gargoyle hovering in the air, roaring at Bai Gang as if mockingly, revealing a mouth full of blood. As soon as Bai Gang's head was hot, he lifted the gun and fired. The 5.8mm rifle hit the gargoyle with poof, 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 and splashed a few smoke and dust, but the monster just shivered, adding a few holes in the fleshy wing membrane, and the torso was actually injured. It didn't hurt either. The bullets were all blocked by the thick horny. At this moment, the Type 02 14.5mm anti-aircraft machine gun flashed a flame on the wall, hitting the arrogant gargoyle accurately. The powerful 14.5mm machine gun shell tore apart the gargoyle's body in an instant, and it disintegrated in the air. Bai Gang stared at the gargoyle's corpse on the ground in a daze, and then his helmet was knocked. "Don't look at it. Hurry up and enter the position." The squad leader stepped on the gargoyle's corpse's feet under pressure, grabbed the white steel and left, and picked up his backpack and rifle as he passed by the corpse of his comrade in arms. "Have bullets, you'll need them later. The two of them carried their comrade Einarm's backpacks to the fence together, and a strong man with a face full of smoke and dust rushed towards him. He was about to take off his bag when he grabbed Bai Gang, which made him back again and again. This guy is not wearing protective clothing. Absolutely crazy. Bullets. Did you bring bullets? Hurry up and give them to me. Bring. I have, the backpack is full of bullets, but there are not many magazines, so you have to load them yourself. It doesn't matter. Just have bullets, there are plenty of empty magazines here. The strong man turned his head and shouted to his companions, "Come here, a few people, the ammunition is here, hurry up and reload." After shouting, he didn't ask Bai Gang whether he agreed or not, he shoved off his backpack, and then a group of people rushed up to divide up the ammunition. Bai Gang was stunned. This is a permanent fortification, how could it even be short of bullets? Your bullets are finished. No one paid any attention to Bai Gang at all, everyone was readied and madly burying their heads in the empty magazines, and they didn't even have the interest to open their mouths to answer. And all these people are not wearing protective clothing. Let's put on protective suits, radiation. A veteran glared at Bai Gang with red eyes, shut up. Do you think we can go back alive? It's raining and the radiation value is already very low, at least it won't kill you until you're devoured by the undead. If when you want to feel more comfortable when you die, take off that thing that gets in your way. The newcomers hesitated, but after a few seconds they started to take off their protective suits. They knew very well that it was impossible to go back alive this time. The white steel also came off. Bai Gang squeezed out of the crowd, leaned on the parapet and looked out, finally seeing the battlefield he was about to be in for the first time. Although the building is 3 stories high, there are so many corpses and skeletons under the wall at this time that it has been piled up to the top of the wall. A few half-buried bulldozers could be faintly seen below the slope, and apparently the defenders had tried to clear the slope, but failed. At this time, the wall can no longer provide effective protection, and there are even sporadic remnants of skeleton soldiers stranded on the to climb. In the distance, the winding barbed wire has long been submerged by the corpses, and only the sturdy horns that sporadically exposed the sea of corpses indicate that this place was once an insurmountable barbed wire position. Farther away, it was like the movie world of Resident Evil, and the undead army rushing in like a tide made Bai Gang's scalp numb. Yes, this is a war between the living and the dead. Bai Gang swallowed his saliva, and then heard his stomach growl out of time. He only ate half a compressed biscuit in 2 days, he was really hungry. Here, let's eat. The comrade next to him handed over a small half of a compressed biscuit, and Bai Gang received it. Eat, don't waste food. Said, the comrade Einarm smiled heartily, smashed his own compressed biscuit, poured his brain into his mouth, and then sent it down with water, swallowed it together with the rain with radiation dust. Well, you can't waste food. Bai Gang also wanted to give a heroic hearty smile, but as soon as the compressed biscuit was put into his mouth, his body instinctively retched. Gudong took the water and stuffed it into his stomach abruptly. There is only one unstable plane door that strikes from time to time. The ammunition consumed by the army in the later period of the war needs 2 days of transportation to be replenished. If it is not for the supply, the armored cluster alone can kill the undead. Flat push. In the end, the endless army of undead completely exhausted the military's materials, which also made the top management of Stormwind Base finally decide to use nuclear weapons. However, the effect of using nuclear weapons in a terrain full of mountains is too bad, and as the undead are not afraid of secondary damage such as nuclear radiation. The powerful radiation has seriously affected the use of electronic equipment and made the combat effectiveness of the human army dramatically drop. Retreat and nuclear explosions have become the main themes of the war. Recently, the base that is rushing to transport equipment and personnel back to Earth no longer has the capacity to replenish supplies. There are only 2 kinds of food left, compressed biscuits and energy bars. Those who can finish a meal without changing their face are true warriors. But even so, as the situation worsened, they couldn't even eat compressed biscuits and energy bars a week ago. The soup is clear and can be photographed. Before the instructor told me to go to fight, but I never thought we would come to the real hell. Bai Gang's comrade Einarm said in a daze, that group of lunatics shouldn't have opened the plane door. Before the comrade Einarms finished speaking, someone shouted not far away. Although I agree with you very much, I will definitely have a drink with you on Earth, but rookie, let me enter the position now. My people are replenishing ammunition, you can clean up the following skeleton soldiers for me to practice. Be careful, to deal with these bone racks, you will either completely knock them apart, or you can honestly shoot your head. It's useless to hit the body, and it doesn't matter to them that a few bones are broken. After the speaker roared, he raised his rifle, turned his head, and knocked down a skeleton soldier. The skeleton soldier whose head was shattered Guru Lu rolled down and became part of the skeleton hillside. Did you see it? That's it. The squad leader nodded and shouted at Bai Gang and the others, everyone enter the position. Free fire, clear the skeleton soldiers below. Pay attention to saving ammunition. Free fire, pay attention to saving ammunition. After receiving the order, Bai Gang leaned out of the parapet, and rolled his name to the slowly crawling skeleton soldiers below. At such a close distance, almost everyone shot one shot, and the scattered skeleton soldiers outside the wall were quickly cleaned up. The scattered skeleton soldiers under the wall were quickly cleaned up, but the real threat came from afar. As the tide of undead approached, Bai Gang could even vaguely hear their creepy wailing. 1,000 meters. The observer reported the distance of the enemy. 800 meters. Snipers are ready. The undead tide just passed the 800 meter position, and the dense rain of rockets in the sky roared past, smashing into the dense formation of undead like raindrops, and annihilated most of the undead front troops in an instant. Bai Gang and the new recruits were cheering, but the old soldiers were unmoved, and still loaded up the last bullet for themselves. If it were a human army, it would most likely collapse after such a wave of bombardment, but the fearless undead would not. Even if the striker was crippled by bombing, the remaining undead troops still rushed towards the wall without stopping. In less than 5 minutes, the formation that had just been dilapidated became densely packed again. Sniper! Fire! Bai Gang and the others had only about 30 people in their position plus reinforcements, and at this time, there were already 7 or 8 people who opened fire. I don't know that the skeleton soldiers who dodge bullets and walk as slow as a snail are a good target. Even at such a long distance, they can have a good hit rate. Not a full-time sniper can also make a cameo. If it is replaced with a new rifle, the effect will be better. The new gun has more ammunition, high power, high precision, and a long range, but the problem is that it is only equipped with elite troops, and they have not had time to change their clothes, but now I'm afraid I can't wait until that day. The gunshots on the fence kept ringing, but there was never any delay in the tide of undead. The skeleton soldiers in front fell every second, but the endless sea of skeletons did not shrink at all, and slowly and terribly pressed up. Bai Gang wiped the sweat from his palms on his clothes. His aim is good, but with the 95 type, this distance is not within his range. Finally, the army of undead rushed into the range of 300 meters, full of malicious roars beating everyone's eardrums. Bai Gang swears that he would rather face the attack of an armored division alone than face these rotten undead. Fire all! Save ammo! Aim for the headshot! Fire! 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 There was a screeching of gunfire on the position. Although it was only a single shot, Bai Gang was stunned with the sound of a burst of shots hitting a skeleton soldier who was next to each other and didn't know how to avoid it. Was much easier than shooting a target. The skeleton soldiers fell one by one, and the bullet casings jumped out with a clanging clang. In 1 minute, the exposed white steel knocked out a bullet clip. Put on a new magazine and continue to play, and then change it a minute later. Seeing that the sea of undead was approaching the 100 meter line, Bai Gang only had the last clip left. Whoever has bullets, give me some. No one answered. Who has new magazines? Still no one answered. Bai Gang was like falling into an ice cave, and he finally knew why those people were so thirsty for bullets when he came. Bai Gang murmured, "We're out of bullets, but we still have guns. By the way, what about our artillery support? What about our guns? Don't be stupid, we have spent so long with these undead, and the bullets have been exhausted. How many shells do you think there are? Still more shells? That round of shelling just now is probably the last shell to press the bottom of the box. Unfortunately, these undead are not afraid of radiation. Otherwise they would have been leveled long ago." The embarrassed window paper was pierced, and everyone's eyes swooshed to the commander who was talking to the base. "Okay, I see." After the call ended, the commander sighed deeply. The base still needs at least an hour to transfer data and install bombs on the plane door, and after this wall, there is no line of defense that can stop the undead from reaching the main body of the base. We now have two choices: either turn our heads and run away and kill those white lab coats who only take test tubes to get home, or we will fight to the death here. If this is an epic heroic blockbuster, then someone should take the lead in shouting "fight to the end," and then everyone responded. Impassioned background music sounded, and the critical moment of rescue finally arrived. Repel the undead, the Jedi strikes back, happy ending. It's a pity that this is not a movie. No one shouted "fight to the death," no one even spoke at all, only the sound of gunshots showed everyone's choice. Of course, since it's not a movie, naturally there won't be any rescue. The enemy. The last 100 meters. When there was still the last half of the magazine left, Bai Gang, who had nothing to miss, simply put the speed and slow machine into the burst mode, and happily passed the addiction of shooting. "Run out of bullets!" Bai Gang roared. "Run out of bullets!" Someone shouted in response. "Run out of bullets! Run out of bullets!" The shouts of "run out of bullets" came one after another, and even the 14.5 mm anti-aircraft machine gun that had been entangled with the gargoyle stopped. After the firepower was sparse, the pace of the undead army suddenly accelerated. Without an order, everyone silently took out the grenades around them. The bullets are gone, and the stock of grenades is quite a lot, and everyone can get at least a dozen of them. The skeleton soldier walking at the front seemed to smell the smell of a living person. He changed his slow pacing as if he was paralyzed before, waving the tattered weapon in his hand, and launched a charge with surprising speed. Although it is at most the speed of human walking, it is magical enough for that skeleton. "Grenade, go back to your hell!" Countless grenades fell from the sky, making the tide of the undead's bones stop. "Go on the bayonet! Gojivan power!" The squad leader let out a roar and applied the magic godsend power that could slightly enhance his physical fitness in a short period of time. The discovery of this magic benefited from the excavation of an ancient ruin, where people can see the illusion of magic teaching left by the builders, and qualified people can awaken the blood of the mage and learn the Gojivan power. This is also the only magic currently in the hands of humans. The squad leader inserted the bayonet and turned over the parapet, stepping on the paved with corpses and bones to rush towards the tide of undead, as insignificant as a pebble smashed into the sea. Immediately afterwards, the second person turned out, and the third turned out. Unfortunately, they did not have the talent to learn magic. Gojivan power. Except for the squad leader, Bai Gang was the only one who knew this magic. After he applied the God-sent power to himself, he also found out. However, he didn't use a bayonet. A bayonet was not a handy weapon against these fleshless bones. He was holding a shovel in his hand. Bai Gang used the engineer shovel as a bat. With the momentum of the downhill, Bai Gang swung the shovel and shot it out. The head of the skeleton soldier in front of him flew out like a baseball. It's not over until you get the spine of another skeleton soldier. Then, Bai Gang was stabbed in the chest. The low-level skeleton soldier's arm strength is very weak, and it is no better than a 6 or 7-year-old child. This knife stabbed on the steel plate of the bulletproof vest, and naturally it has no effect. The angry white steel smashed the lower black-handed skeleton soldier's shoulder blade with a shovel, cutting the bone in half from top to bottom. Even if you don't hit the head, as long as your body is severely damaged, you can still kill the skeleton soldiers. But Bai Gang only had time to smash the third skeleton soldier, and when he was about to smash the fourth, his arm was hugged by 2 skeleton soldiers who were swarming up, and the engineer's shovel was also snatched away. Bai Gang, who was blessed with Gajavan power, roared, and swung the 2 skeleton soldiers on his arms as weapons and threw them out. But he smashed 2 and pounced on 3. After ripping off 3 of them, more than a dozen have come up. The innumerable skeleton soldiers followed one after another, easily crushing the insignificant resistance of human beings. Bai Gang was buried by the white skeleton marine life. Bai Gang, who was buried by the skeleton, struggled to get up, but was overwhelmed by more and more skeleton soldiers. At the moment of Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, he replayed over and over in his head the scene where John N was almost trampled to death during the battle in Game of Thrones. Bai Gang could feel that something was biting at his boots, something was stabbing him in the back, and something was hammering his chest, and finally, he felt his neck was smeared with a knife. The knife was dull but painful, and it was getting harder to breathe. Is it so dead? Detonate the explosives. Let me die again, you undead. This was the last sentence he heard before he was engulfed by the flames. When he lost consciousness, a huge mushroom cloud rose from the storm base not far away, and the energy that seemed to destroy the sky and the earth recklessly destroyed the surrounding area. Everything of Jingle bell bell bell. Bai Gang, who was awakened by the alarm, suddenly sat up, gasping for breath, nervously rubbing his neck, then his chest and waist. There is no wound. No blood. There are no skeleton soldiers around either. I'm alive. Bai Gang looked at the desk calendar on the table, then looked at this familiar and unfamiliar old room, and finally picked up the small mirror and looked at his face. It was the face of an elementary school student. Bai Gang was paralyzed on the bed and weakly muttered to himself, "It turns out that I was still a primary school student. This stinky and long nightmare. Humans can actually invade another world, and I actually learned magic. Haha, what the is this dream? Fortunately, I wasn't late for school." Said in a self-deprecating manner, Bai Gang recited the incantation silently according to the way in his dream, and then jokingly shouted, "Gajavan power." Immediately, his face was full of horror. "Go on the bayonet. Gajavan power. Detonate the explosives. Let me die again, you undead." Death in the dream, but awakened in reality, Bai Gang put his arm on his sweaty forehead, gasping for breath. It is the same dream that has not changed for many years. Looking at the phone, at 6 o'clock sharp, the red sun in the early morning outside the floor-to-ceiling window was slowly rising from the sea level. When his breathing calmed down a little, Bai Gang whispered in a slightly uneasy tone, "System." After Bai Gang uttered the word, an illusory circular projection appeared in his consciousness. The circular ring surrounded his body horizontally, and it was full of various icons. This style Bai Gang is very familiar with. It is the operating system interface used by the storm base built in another world, which makes Bai Gang have to suspect that his system is probably the computer system of the previous base. At the beginning, only one icon of properties was bright, and the rest were all grey. Later, a few were unlocked, but most of them were still grey. As soon as his consciousness moved, Bai Gang clicked on the attributes icon, and immediately an attribute panel popped up. Race, human soul energy, 3, inferior, body strength, 31, 56, agility, 33, 74, constitution, 36, 47, intelligence, 26, 54, will, 34, 79, Magic Affinity, 21, 34, Combat Skills Hand-to-Hand Combat, LV5, 7, Swordsmanship, LV7, 9, Firearms, LV4, 5, Throwing, LV3, 4, Magic Gojavan Power, LV6, 6, Stealing Soul, LV1, 1, Talent Iron Will, Death and Nightmares make your will as strong as steel, and the potential limit of the will is plus 15 sure. Enough. Although he has to verify it almost every day, every time Bai Gang is uneasy, he is afraid that everything he has experienced in the end is just a dream. But everything is true. Not only is the experience in the previous life true, but there is even an inexplicable system in the body. However, Bai Gang's system is not much worse than the Lord God level system that is often seen in novels. First, you can't communicate, second, you can't exchange items, and there are no magical functions such as storage space. What's more pitiful is that most of the icons can't be clicked. The only thing that Bai Gang uses most often now is the property and software. The data in the attribute panel is followed by a simple description, and I learned a lot of useful information through this white steel. For example, most software in the system needs soul energy to run. Soul energy is the energy that escapes from the collapse of the soul when the creature dies, and it can be collected in conjunction with the magic soul stealing. Soul stealing is a magic that appears with the system, and Bai Gang is very sure that he has never learned this magic. The magic power consumed by this magic is very small, almost negligible. It can add a soul stealing state to objects within a certain range. As long as Bai Gang uses an item with a soul stealing state to kill the enemy, there is a certain chance. Obtaining soul energy, the more powerful the soul, the higher the probability of obtaining soul energy, and the better the quality of the enemy, and the probability of obtaining soul energy for small animals such as mice and rabbits can be ignored. The attribute data is similar to the one in the game. The only difference is that there is an extra bracket. The data inside is the limit data of Bai Gang's body. This thing is given by my parents. This body can't go beyond the limit. After all, his system didn't come from the main god, and he still couldn't make him go beyond the realm of human beings. There is a strengthening software specially responsible for the strengthening of attributes, but so far, the white steel has not been used. As for combat skills and magic, the values in parentheses are also the limit values that can be achieved. These are also given by parents, and there is no room for negotiation. What makes Bai Gang unhappy the most is that as a system, the levels of these combat skills and magic cannot be directly strengthened by adding points, and they can only be practiced continuously like normal people. The only benefit is that the system can record his epiphany when he breaks through the realm and can use soul energy to consolidate it. It is enough to consume a little low-quality soul energy each time, which is very affordable. Now the white steel has 4 combat skills: hand-to-hand combat, swordsmanship, firearms, and throwing. Unarmed fighting and throwing are not the focus of white steel practice, and swordsmanship and firearms have entered a bottleneck state. It is no longer possible to improve by simply relying on practice. If there is no epiphany breakthrough, it may be difficult to go further. What you get from the system can only depend on your own chances. Whether it is swordsmanship, shooting, or other skills, many times it is not possible to improve by practice alone. After reaching the bottleneck, the epiphany is the key. If you grasp this epiphany and then strengthen it, you can elevate your skills. It will be difficult for other people to grasp this fleeting and ethereal epiphany. Sometimes they have already experienced it but don't notice it. In addition, the consolidation after grasping is also very time-consuming. It is impossible to master it without a long period of hard practice. But with the white steel of the system, you can realize that you have it. As long as the white steel pierces this layer of window paper, even if he does not realize it, the system will be responsible for recording this illusory moment and use the combat skill software. After paying the soul energy, it can be branded into the soul, as if it has been immersed in this realm for a lifetime. 20 years of hard work coupled with the system, this is the reason why Baigong has made rapid progress. Finally, regarding talents, according to the instructions, talents can be developed and strengthened by adding points, but unfortunately the related software is still grayed out. Before Baigong obtained the first soul energy, the two softwares, strengthening and combat skills, suddenly became usable, so he guessed that each software might only be unlocked after the soul energy reached a certain standard. In order to unlock more, he has been accumulating soul energy with software, which is why he has never strengthened his attributes once other than using combat skill software to consolidate his vigilance. However, it is very difficult to obtain soul energy. Baigong once killed countless rabbits and mice in the laboratory, and he never got soul energy. It was only during the mission to fight drug lords abroad that he killed more than a dozen drug dealers. I got some soul energy, and there is a note, inferior, on the back. Although Baigong has generally understood that only intelligent creatures of the level of humans can provide soul energy in a true sense, but after all, people cannot kill people at will in peacetime, and the soul energy in his hand is always that little bit, so he can't help but use it. It's not that he didn't consider becoming a mercenary in a warden area in the past, but in this way, he was worried that the selection to join Stormwind Base in the future might be brushed off, so he had to give up for the sake of safety. Wake up, wash up, and go for a morning run on the private beach. When I came back, the nanny, Aunt Zhang, had already prepared breakfast. In his previous life, Baigong's family owned a pharmaceutical factory with 2,000 employees. It looked pretty on the surface, but to put it bluntly, it was actually a small local factory with many workers and old equipment, high cost and low profit. It's just too hard-earned money for the proprietary Chinese medicines and vaccines. I can't save a few dollars after removing artificial raw materials. Before Baigong became a soldier, the factory collapsed due to poor management. Now Baigong's rebirth will naturally not watch it. My own factory is dead. There is no way to play with new medicines without capital, so Baigong made a few kinds of healthcare products to hype up the classic cases of the previous life, and made a lot of money. Healthcare products rely on the curative effect and the 9 points on flickering. The fraudulent business that dares to sell you 100 for $1 is not what Baigong wants. For the reborn, there are many profitable businesses, and there is no need to earn this immorality. Qian, Baigong is more concerned about the opportunities after the door of the future plane is opened. Therefore, after the pharmaceutical factory gradually came to life, Baigong used his foresight to make money in various fields, and then fed back the pharmaceutical factory, constantly merging and expanding, and establishing a research and development center. While breaking the title of prodigy, step by step, his own pharmaceutical factory has achieved the first position in the country. Putting down a plate of fried eggs for Baigong, the nanny aunt said, "The trainer just called and said that he will be there in an hour." "Thank you, Aunt Zhang." Baigong ate the fried egg into his stomach a few times, and then used chopsticks to put the remaining millet porridge in the bowl together, picked up and swept the remaining one into his mouth. Aunt Zhang said with a smile, "It's a real blessing to be your chef. I feel good when I see you eating." Baigong put down the tableware and smiled, "That's because Aunt Zhang makes incense." "Don't say that, don't I know my own craftsmanship? The old and the young in my family have never eaten as much as you. Those who can eat all their food without wasting food are warriors." "Haha, it's still President Bai who educates children." Baigong smiled, but didn't say anything. His father had never taught this kind of thing. After he had endured the experience of swallowing compressed biscuits with sour water in his previous life, he had never wasted a grain of rice again. Seeing that there was still time, Baigong came to the training hall after a short rest, intending to practice more before the trainer arrived. A few days ago, Baigong was busy taking care of the business of his own pharmaceutical factory. It was inevitable that he had a bit of a fall in his training, and his physique had dropped by 1 point, so he thought of hiring a professional to help him recover. After all, although he has been practicing swords for more than 10 years, it is definitely not as good as a professional in terms of quick recovery. If this world is still as memory, if it has not been disturbed by his reborn butterfly, there will soon be an opportunity to go to another world. It is very important to maintain a good state at this time. On the cobblestone-paved path by the sea, Trainer Cole was looking at the navigation information on his mobile phone while admiring the surrounding luxury villas with different styles. There are so many rich people in China, and I don't know when I will be able to live in such a house. Cole sighed. As a Chinese national, it is not difficult to buy a house that can be called a mansion in the eyes of Chinese people, but what Cole wants is not simply a house. The house is located in a good neighborhood, which can help you rise to a decent social class. The design should have a unique style. It is best to find a well-known designer, so that you can be decent when partying at home. Of course, these things can be done, as long as you have money. Not to mention the property taxes, insurance premiums, property fees, yard maintenance fees, etc. that will follow after owning a house. These are all money. But Cole has everything else, just lack of money. This is also the reason why he is desperately taking up private jobs in his spare time as a personal trainer for the rich. It should be here. Thinking and walking, Cole quickly found the location of the navigation prompt. After confirming that the address was correct, he rang the doorbell. After a while, Aunt Zhang came over and opened the door. "Hello, I'm here to find Mr. Bai. I've made an appointment." "Are you a Cole trainer?" "Yes, it's me." "Ah, Mr. Cole, your Chinese language is really good. Thank you for the compliment. Can you take me to Mr. Bai's place now?" "Well, Mr. Cole, come with me." Following Aunt Zhang in the garden of Bai's house, Kerr pouted in disdain, retrieved a training plan document from his mobile phone, and laughed while watching. The money of these rich people in China is simply too good to earn. They are not even at the amateur level, but they still have to find professional trainers. "I just need to fool around with a general training class and I can earn 10 times as much as a professional team. I don't know what kind of cute idiot this guy is today." Cole was thinking that the two had already arrived in front of the training hall, and Cole, who was full of thoughts about starting quickly and ending quickly and making easy money, pushed open the door. Then he saw a dark shadow speeding past his eyes. God! What did I see? Who is that person? Is he practicing 100 meters? Why is he still holding something in his hand? Although there is no timing, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, but Kerr can swear to God that this man's speed can definitely compete with Bolt, and he is not using the correct 100 meter running posture. Because that person holds two long knives in his hands. Long knife? What the is that? Holding a pair of knives, Bai Gang quickly swept through the dense plastic dummies on the training ground. The dummies were all separated from each other. Although it was quite violent, the trainer Kerr looked at the trainer. An inexplicable sense of art. A dummy head rolled over and hit Cole's feet and stopped. He leaned over to pick it up and looked at it. The dummy's neck was drawn with a skeleton pattern, and the incision was very accurate in a section. Scratch through the sutures, exactly. It's so accurate. Intrigued, Cole picked up the other dummy heads and looked at them. The incision was as precise as copy-paste. It made him feel chills down his spine, and he unconsciously touched his throat. Being able to swing the knife so accurately at the speed of a 100 meter sprint is like a character in a superhero comic. It's not a coincidence. More importantly, he swung the knife quickly and accurately while running at the speed of the Olympic 100 meter run. Chinese Kung Fu. And it's not the kind of flower stand used for entertainment performances. It's a real combat-style Kung Fu. Originally thought it was an order to make some extra money, but he never expected to meet such a miraculous employer. Cole swears that he has never praised God so devoutly as he is now. Praise God for giving him a chance to make a fortune. As long as you seize this opportunity, the villa, beauty, sports car, yacht, I will have everything. Taking advantage of the gap between Bai Gang's practice and rest, Cole immediately moved up. Mr. Bai, I'm your trainer Cole. Has anyone told you before? You're a real-life version of Deadpool. I don't understand why you don't become an athlete, football, basketball, or boxing. You will become a world superstar. Money, fame, beauty. Nothing is a problem. Bai Gang wiped his sweat, threw the towel aside, looked at Cole and said, "Sorry, I don't need an agent." Cole scratched his head in embarrassment after being told by one sentence. "No, it's just a secondary issue that I'm not an agent. If you don't enter the sports world, it's a loss for the world. It's not for China, not for Asia, but for the world. It's for the entire human race, you know." Bai Gang took out his phone and swiped the information without raising his head. So. Cole was confused by Bai Gang's indifferent attitude, but he still didn't give up. "So you can get a lot of money." "A lot." Bai Gang finally set his eyes on Cole, but he looked like a lunatic. "Are you talking about money just now? Are you sure you are talking about me?" Cole was stunned. Except for those aristocratic sports, there were very few rich athletes in the sports world. He was just excited, and for a while he really forgot the identity of Bai Gang, the largest in China. The eldest son of the pharmaceutical group Bai's Pharmaceutical. He will be short of money. What a joke. Well, we won't mention the money, but you will be famous. It will make a lot of beauties go crazy. Bai Gang shrugged and said, "That would be very troublesome. I don't need it, thank you." Afraid of trouble? What a reason! Cole felt more and more lost in the minds of these rich people. Okay, since you're not interested in the rest, it's fine, but at least you like swords, why don't you go to the fencing competition?" "Fencing competition?" Bai Gang smiled contemptuously, shook his head and said in a cold voice, "The rules of restraint will make my sword blunt." "Well, don't talk anymore, or don't expect me to pay you the full salary." Bai Gang's swordsmanship is a real swordsmanship. He has never wasted any talent in competition and let him participate in fencing competitions? Just a joke. Seeing that Bai Gang has no intention of letting go, coupled with the threat of deducting money, Cole finally gave up the idea of persuading Bai Gang for a while, but it was only temporarily. There was clearly a golden mountain in front of him, and nothing could stop him from coming to Pan for gold. As long as he can become his agent, his dream can come true. At first, Bai Gang just wanted to find someone to help him restore his state, but he didn't expect Kerr to see something he shouldn't watch. Since then, seeing him from time to time, he wanted to encourage Bai Gang to join the sports world. Bai Gang felt that there was no way to go on like this, so he simply added a non-disclosure agreement to Cole. Cole still had the idea of using Bai Gang as a golden mountain, and naturally did not dare to offend him, so he happily signed the agreement. At this point, Bai Gang was relieved. The Bai Gang in the previous life naturally did not have such abnormal physical quality. The reason why the body of Bai Gang in this life is so different from the previous life is because of the magic Gojavan power. When he was just reborn back to his elementary school days, Bai Gang also thought about saying goodbye to that plain door, saying goodbye to the group of dead souls who came back to life, and saying goodbye to the military uniform he once wore. Make good use of your foresight to be a big entrepreneur or something. The worst thing is to rush to buy a few more houses before the price rises, and you will not have to worry about eating and drinking in the future. But every time he fell asleep, the terror of the previous life would always linger in his mind, and the nightmares tormented him night after night, until he understood one thing: he had to go back after all, otherwise he would never think about it in his life. Be solid. Besides, after experiencing the deaths of the comrades in the previous life, is it really good to just stay on the earth like this? Even if you really become a rich man, won't you regret it when you spend time and money? So, Bai Gang began to exercise in order to return to the other world since the second month of his rebirth, and he has been practicing magic Gojavan power, and now it has been upgraded to the top level of instant meditation. According to the data provided by the system, at the beginning, God-sent power could provide an increase of about 10% of the full quality, and now it has reached 200%. The duration has also increased from 10 minutes to an hour. When practicing magic, Bai Gang also received an unexpected joy. God-sent power was originally just a temporary gain magic that was only effective for the caster himself, but when Bai Gang, who was reborn as a primary school student, practiced for many years, he was astonished. It was discovered that this magic actually has a growth-promoting effect on adolescents in the growing period. Permanently increase strength, agility, and physique. After the development is over, Bai Gang's physical fitness has already taken a qualitative leap. Generally speaking, the attributes of ordinary people will not exceed 10, and the 3 physical attributes of Bai Gang's strength, agility, and physique are already 3 times that of normal people. That's it. As for why Bai Gang is practicing swordsmanship, Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com. This is because based on the experience of his previous life, he believes that guns alone cannot stop the undead army. The enemy is an endless group of undead creatures who do not know what to fear. Getting into a close-quarters fight, and usually equipped with pistols, daggers, shovels and other equipment is extremely limited in this moment, far less useful than swords. Therefore, Bai Gang visited the whole country and went to learn swordsmanship under the masters of the hidden swordsmanship. Even when he dropped out of school and joined the army during the university, he did not fall behind. After being demobilized, he became an exchange student and went to Fuzhang to study for 2 years to continue his undergraduate studies. Visit the Fuzhou Kendo master to challenge, learn, and hone your skills, and finally achieve your desired swordsmanship. With amazing physical fitness and superb knife skills, Bai Gang is confident that he will no longer be afraid of those undead clothes by this time. Another day of training was over, and Kerr was sent off. Bai Gang was about to take a break when he received a call from the old monitor. "How has Gangza been recently? Have you talked about a girlfriend? If you want me to tell you that you are not too young, you should think about your personal problems. If there is no suitable one, how about I ask you?" As a good young man with an age of 28, the real 28 years, learning how to deal with the introduction of the 7 ants and 8 ants on blind dates is a necessary life skill. Especially as someone who has lived a heavy life, Bai Gang's handling is very sophisticated. "Does the monitor have anything else to do? I'll hang up without me." "Hey, don't, no, there are things, there is a little thing besides the official business of the blind date. Recently, the state wants to count the employment situation of retired soldiers. I will send you a website. You can fill in the information. The tasks assigned above, report it within a week, don't delay." Employment statistics? It's all basic things, it's just a survey. Your situation is special, your family owns a company, and it is estimated that there is no second generation wealthy in your career, you can just fill in whatever you like. Oh, by the way, in addition to the survey, there is also a test question for you to answer. Soon, the monitor sent a URL. Bai Gang is on the website, a very normal government website. After his discharge from the army, Bai Gang has filled out 2 or 3 times for such statistical work. It is not surprising, but then he saw the recruitment advertisement of Quafa Group on the page. The pop-up window suddenly flushed with excitement. It's been almost 20 years since he was reborn, isn't that what he's been waiting for? The Quafa Group in this life is just a new group that has just been established and has not yet entered the public eye. However, in the previous life of Bai Gang, the Quafa Group has become a behemoth. He also monopolized all business related to the other world, and anyone who wants to touch the cheese of the other world has to let it get a share of it. However, even a reborn person like Bai Gang knows that the Quafa Group who can advertise in such a place must have an unusual background. The current Kwafa group is not the behemoth that spanned many fields in the previous life, but a military contractor, and the business is similar to that of the famous Blackwater Company. In addition to the bomb business, the core business is not carried out on the earth at all. The Haishui Company is called Haishui International, and in the previous life, Bai Gang and the others all laughed and called the Kwafa group Kwafu Interstellar. Exactly. The so-called Kwafa group is actually an organization established to explore another world. Those who go to another world, whether they are fighters or researchers, are employees of the Kwafa group. As a group that conducts military contracting business across dimensions, Kwafu Interstellar deserves its name. Did the plane door finally open? Bai Gang let out a long sigh. Over the years, the thing he was most worried about was whether the butterfly effect would blow up the plane door because of his rebirth. Now he can finally feel at ease. The door is still there. It is also meaningful to persist in the exercise for 20 years. Now, all these efforts will finally come to fruition. How to choose the many positions of Kwafa group is also very particular. Many of them are smoke bomb positions with missions on Earth. The positions that really go to the other world need to be carefully searched. Fortunately, many of these things have already been cleared up by Bai Gang. Bai Gang clicked into the Kwafa group's page, searched carefully, and quickly found his target, the Dangerous Zone Scientific Research and Exploration Team. In the other world, combatants are divided into 3 categories: Security Forces, and Secret Service Forces. Secrecy troops are simply secret agents. They are selected by various intelligence departments and are responsible for various secrecy-related activities. The most important job is to check spies. However, once you reach the other world, even if you are isolated from the world, there are not too many things to pay attention to, so the number of secret troops is not large, and it was not quickly expanded until the war broke out. The garrison is in charge of the garrison work of the Stormwind base. They don't go out for action. The equipment follows the special police route. They are all dark. Because they can't even see a living thing around, the number is also not large. They need to accept the leadership of the secret troop in action. As for the special forces that occupy 80% of the military strength of Stormwind base, they can be subdivided into forces and exploration forces. The unit mainly performs field tasks, is responsible for protecting the scientific research personnel who go out for scientific expeditions, and does some handiwork by the way. In short, the exploration team is an armed exploration team. There is no research staff in the team, and they can go deep into the unknown land of the other world to survey and map samples to collect samples. Once there is a major operation that requires the joint action of the exploration force and the force, the exploration force is the main one. According to the gossip information Bai Gang heard in his previous life, this dangerous area scientific research team is one of the ways to recruit officers leading the team. The concept of the formation of the initial exploration force is to be able to protect themselves in harsh and unknown environments and complete certain scientific research work. At the same time, the leader of the exploration team also needs to lead the team when the scientific researchers go out for scientific expeditions, and coordinate and command the scientific researchers and the troops. There are serious obstacles in the communication between the researchers and the accompanying bodyguard soldiers. Many fighters don't understand why picking a plant specimen in the wild should conform to what kind of distribution, always thinking of picking something pleasing to the eye and digging it out. Many researchers think that the reason why the assault rifle can shoot continuously is because it is equipped with a motor. Charge it up before fighting like a cell phone. In this situation, someone must stand up to coordinate and communicate with the elites in their respective fields and the idiots in the other field, and squeeze them into a hole. The commander of the exploration force is such a role. Therefore, the officers of the exploration troops must have high military literacy and high education at the same time. That is to be able to literary and martial arts. Bai Gang in the previous life was just an ordinary fighter who was urgently recruited in the late stage of the development of the other world because of the Tite War. Now that he has the opportunity to be reborn, he naturally wants a higher starting point. In order to be able to meet this standard, Bai Gang at the student stage has become a learning machine. In addition to training and learning all day long, he was finally admitted to the biology-related major of Imperial College. During college, Bai Gang dropped out of school and joined the army. Relying on the accumulation of his previous life and his health in this life, he became a scout along the way. He also went abroad to perform secret missions, killed people, and saw blood. After demobilization, he continued his studies and obtained a master's degree. This kind of qualifications also belongs to the middle to high level in the exploration team. Although it is unlikely that they will pass the test directly, at least they can be considered. After checking twice to make sure there was no problem, Bai Gang sent out his resume, and the only thing left was to wait. A week later, Bai Gang received a reply from the Kwafa group. "Congratulations, Mr. Bai Gang, your job application has passed the preliminary review. Please arrive at the headquarters of Imperial Kwafa Group within a week for an interview." Turning off the news, Bai Gang smiled slightly, used his mobile phone to buy a ticket for that night, packed his luggage that had been packed for many days, and headed straight to the airport. Regarding his ambitions, Bai Gang had already communicated with his parents on vaccinations when he joined the army. After several years of perseverance, his parents finally got helpless understanding, although they always believed that Bai Gang's genius would be a good thing to do. Dangerous and hopeless military contractors are just joking, but Nahi Bai Gang's determination is rock solid, so after saying hello to his parents this time, they agreed smoothly. The interview of the Kwafa group was actually just a cut scene, and it had little impact on the results, because the detailed information of each candidate was rummaged through by the professional intelligence department, and even many things that they had forgotten were clear. Put it on someone's table. Moreover, if you want to get a position, you have to go through the third round of training, which is the most important link. After going through the interview process, Bai Gang and other candidates were dragged to a secret training base. When Bai Gang sees the group of people waiting for training in the base, he can confirm that he has come to the right place. He knows many of them. At least he knew him in his previous life. Although he knew people who didn't know him, he knew that many of these people would be mid-level commanders of the base in the future. At this time, there are roughly 3 types of trainees in the training base. The first type is soldiers, the second type is scientific research personnel, and the third type is Bai Gang and the others. The training content of each type of person is different. Soldiers are trained accordingly for missions. These people have a foundation, and the military training intensity is not too great, and it is very simple for them to complete. But military training is not the main thing. Their main training content is scientific knowledge. That's right, they have to put all kinds of field research knowledge that college students, graduate students, and even doctoral students can use in their heads during the 1-month crash training. They don't ask them to become experts, but they want to be able to do it when the time comes. Don't make a mess, it's best to help out with a little help or something. But Bai Gang is very sure that this group of people would rather choose the Devil's Field survival training for a month and eat crispy chicken flavor every day, rather than race against time to pour these ghost-like symbols into their heads. You must know that this kind of cramming is even slightly stronger than the college entrance examination sprint. For a bunch of uncle soldiers who have long passed the best learning age, it is simply a punishment. All day long to vomit, life is better than death. This is the true portrayal of those people. The training content of the researchers is just reversed. The most important thing for them is some physical fitness and basic military training. They are not asked to become soldiers, but they are asked not to hold back when they encounter any emergencies. Different from the orthodox laboratory otakus, these recruits have more or less experience in field scientific research, and their bodies are still fine, but after all, they are not soldiers, and the whole day of military training is also tiring. As for Bai Gang and the others, they should be the easiest. They are basically restorative training, picking up forgotten military and scientific knowledge, and then some basic officer training. After the initial restorative training, the intensity of the training gradually increased, and it also brought a lot of assessment properties. For example, he led a team to investigate a completely unknown area, and strictly restricted the use of various technical equipment and air support. Bai Gang knew at a glance that this was simulating the mission conditions of another world. Naturally, it is impossible for other people to know the tricks. Most of them subconsciously ignore the key point of completely unknown, and automatically set the Earth mode when they act. Just like many people suddenly left their mobile phones and computers without knowing how to work and live, the trainees almost subconsciously rely on the high-tech equipment in their hands. But Bai Gang knew that these things were useless in the other world where there was nothing. Bai Gang has always acted according to the standards of the other world. Although he is often ridiculed by others as having persecution delusions and inexperience, in fact, his secret scores are always among the best. Major General Le, I have sent you the training materials for the training camp. We have already screened it out. Please take a final look. If there are no problems, these people will be the captains of the exploration team in the future. Major General Le clicked on the file on the computer and browsed it quickly, because he has always been concerned about the training camp, and the situation of each person in it is roughly known as the chief officer of the exploration team. These people will belong to him in the future. Directly under the jurisdiction, he could not help but care. It didn't take long for Major General Le to read the document, his brows furrowed and his face serious. What's going on with this list? List? No problem. Major General Le slowly spit out a name, Bai Gang. The man suddenly realized. Bai Gang is indeed a talented person. He has a good brain and hard skills. He performed very well in the training camp. It brings a lot of trouble, after all, the danger of exploring the troops is very high, in case. There's nothing to worry about. Major General Le said indifferently, do you think the other 4 captains we selected in the internal competition are simple? Hehe, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com more than one of him is not too much. And in the future we have to deal with Bai's pharmaceuticals after all, there are many things to worry about in the other world, and disease is unfortunately one of them. With the eldest son of Bai's pharmaceuticals here, it will be easier to deal with them in the future. Well, since you said so. Major General Le nodded and added Bai Gang's name to the list of qualified candidates. In the early morning of the second day after the training, all the personnel who passed the assessment in the base were packed into a fleet of RVs. They didn't see any difference from the outside, but when they got inside the RV they found that the car was modified, all the windows were taped up, and they couldn't see the outside and couldn't get to the cab. Oh, I don't want us to know the route. It seems that the place we're going is very confidential. Sure, otherwise why use RVs? Ordinary people in our team will only think that there are activities in a certain RV club and will not do more. The confidentiality work is done like this. I want to know more and more about us. What is the mission? With that said, everyone showed a consonant smile. Yes, everyone who can stay knows that the so-called dangerous area scientific research team's armed security mission is basically a pretense. Even if you don't know it at first, you can guess something after 2 months of training. A group of people are idle and have nothing to do, get together and guess where they will go. Bai Gang hides and does not participate. He knows where he will go in the end, but he can't say it, and no one will believe it, so he just hides himself. Play your own. Fortunately, everyone is just talking about it casually. No one wants to talk about such potentially secret things. The topic quickly shifted to some favorite projects. The convoy drove for a whole day. Because it was a RV with all kinds of facilities, everyone didn't feel too tired. Several people were chatting one after another, when suddenly they felt a shock in their bodies and the car stopped moving. A person in the car said, "Hey, the car seems to have stopped. Are we at the stop?" As soon as the voice fell, the door of the RV opened, and 2 people in chemical protective suits and fully armed walked in. Everyone, get out of the car. When they got out of the car, Bai Gang and the others found themselves in a fully enclosed warehouse. The door was closed, there were no windows, and they couldn't see anything except the dim red light. Then, they were asked to turn in their personal belongings, take off all their clothes including their underwear, and put on white tights after taking a shower. The clothes felt strange, and they always felt like they were in a sci-fi movie after wearing them. Only a small part of the personal items submitted can be carried, and an application form must be filled out, and the rest can only be stored. In addition, it is not enough to carry too many pieces, and it is limited to 5 pieces, which catches many people by surprise and has to reluctantly give up a lot of things. After finishing all this, Bai Gang and the others were taken into a huge, weird room. The room is completely closed, with no windows. To enter, you need to pass through an airtight door. The room is very large and very empty. There are many huge screens on the bare walls, but there is almost nothing else. There are also some small rooms inside, and the furnishings are also very simple, with metal tables and chairs with extremely simple lines and single beds covered with strange fabrics similar to non-woven fabrics. Now it feels even weirder. No one told them what to do, no one came over to tell them what to do, everyone just sat in this huge weird room doing nothing and watching TV or something. Naturally, there is something to eat, but it is disgusting, very disgusting. The 3 meals a day are all boiled and mushy. It is said that it is some kind of nutritional mixture. It has no taste at all, and it tastes like chewing wax. No, chewing wax is at least a little chewy to practice teeth, but this thing is not even chewy at all. For 7 whole days, everyone was going crazy in the room. As a carefully selected elite staff, 7 days of boring life is naturally no problem, but the nutritional mixture that makes everyone vomit when they see it makes everyone curse. Everyone has reached a consensus. After going out, they must find the person who provides this kind of to them and beat them up. After a few months, they did. Of course that's another story. Brother, you are a real warrior, I've taken it, brother. You can eat this kind of stuff, I'd rather eat bugs every day than eat this. Swallowing the last bit of the nutrient mixture into his stomach, Bai Gang looked up at the person who just spoke. He covered his mouth, his face turned green, and the nutrient mixture he was holding only took a small sip. Bai Gang smiled and said, "You can't waste food." Not wasting food is only one aspect, another very important point is that Bai Gang knows what this nutrient mixture is used for. At first, because of the fear that the germs of the 2 worlds would interact with each other and cause a catastrophe, all kinds of materials, including all kinds of materials, had to be disinfected first, but in the later stage, no one would care about other objects except people, because everyone found that whether it was on Earth, even germs from other worlds cannot survive after passing through the cracks in the plane, and even the beneficial flora in the human body will be greatly affected. Which is why they stay in this ghost place for 7 days. This big room is far from being as simple as it looks. He can subtly allow Bai Gang and his body to adapt to the environment of another world, and at the same time repair the beneficial flora in the body that was damaged when passing through the cracks in the plane. If you don't eat the nutrient mixture at this time, you will have to run for a few days after going out. At this moment, the door of the room finally opened. All of a sudden everyone jumped up in surprise. You must know that in the past 7 days, even the meals they ate were passed in from a special transmission port. It was still 2 people in chemical protective suits who came in. "Okay, the quarantine period is over, you can come out, welcome to the storm base, rookies." After speaking, the 2 led the crowd out of the room and walked all the way to the empty square. When we got outside, everyone's first feeling was that it was cold. The second feeling is the wind. The third feeling is that this ghost weather is not going to rain heavily. The place where they are located is a huge construction site. The buildings, playgrounds, warehouses, etc. have all been completed, but the surrounding walls and some peripheral buildings are still under intense construction. Although it hasn't rained yet, the workers are all wearing raincoats. Obviously, everyone's judgment is correct. It is indeed going to rain here. Are we going to the beach? I smell the fishy sea. It must be the seaside. And the storm is about to pass. I have handed in my mobile phone, and I can't read the weather forecast. You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Even if you can read the weather forecast, you have to know where you are. Smelling the familiar salty odor, Bai Gang couldn't help but get excited. He was so familiar with this place, and every time he had a nightmare, he would always come here once. Another world. That's right, this is the advance base established by mankind in the other world, Stormwind Base. He took a deep breath of the air of another world, and suppressed his inner excitement. He has been preparing for this moment for almost 20 years. Everyone follow me. Bai Gang and the others were taken to the auditorium. After everyone was gathered, an old man with silver hair walked up, knocked on the microphone, and said loudly, "Before I get down to business, I need to say something first. Anyone who wants to quit, please say it now. As long as you say it, you can get in the car and go back." The old man looked around for a week. No one wants to quit? Well, time is precious, so I'll get down to business. My surname is Ren, so everyone can call me Commander Ren. First of all, welcome to the Storm Base in the new domain. This is where you will work and live in the future. Everyone in the audience didn't turn their heads, and exchanged information with each other out of the corner of their eyes. You look at me, I look at you, and you can see doubts in the eyes of others. What the is Xinyu? Never heard of it at all. Does our country have such a number one place? I believe you are all wondering where you are. I'll tell you the answer, but before that, I'm going to tell a story. The expressions of everyone in the audience were very exciting, almost all of them looked like they were constipated. I just felt that this guy on the stage was really immoral. But they don't have the time to think about these things when the story begins. More than a year ago, a physics institute had an explosion during the test work of a very large superconducting tokamak. Because of some conditions that we can't explain at the moment, the fusion-bound tokamak became a plane door, and the plane connected by the tokamak device is what we call the new domain. That's right, it's the land under your feet. Yes, everyone, your doubts are correct, you are now standing on a completely unknown alien plane. You are about to become the pioneers of the new field. Impassioned. Loudly. However, no one applauded at all, because everyone was dumbfounded. Another world. New domain. The face door. What the are they? This old man is not kidding us. By the way, who are you? Has anyone heard of it? Could this be some kind of entry test for the Kwafa group? The correct answer is to believe it or not. According to common sense, it is definitely unbelievable, but when has this kind of test been done according to common sense? If you don't believe me, will you be given a hat for disobeying orders? But if it's a letter, this special lying hat is waiting there. By the way, which came up with this immoral test? Commander Ren stood on the stage with a calm expression, obviously anticipating the crowd's reaction. I know you won't believe it so easily, it doesn't matter, you can see with your own eyes, listen with your ears, think with your own heads, and you will naturally believe in a few days. After a while, you will receive your own equipment and rooms, and of course, there are more important assignments. You have 3 days to get acquainted with the environment and team members, and the 4th day officially begins the mission. Alright guys, you don't have much time, race against the clock. After speaking, Commander Ren turned around and got off the platform, surrounded by guards, and returned to the building, while Bai Gang and the others were led by the base staff to go through the formalities to get the equipment. When they came out of the auditorium, most of the people were still dizzy. Their intuition told them that what the old man who called himself Commander Ren just said was not fake, but their reason was laughing at this nonsense from beginning to end. Talk. For these people, as Commander Ren said, you can only experience and verify it yourself. Sir, this is your certificate, please take it. Thanks. Bai Gang took the document bag with his name written on it from the beautiful-looking female soldier. It contained documents, epaulets, appointment letters, etc. It was very formal. The organization is structured, but it is relatively more flexible, but at least basic things such as military rank epaulets are the same as the army. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there will be a meeting of all the captains of the expedition force in conference room 217, please remember to attend. Okay, I know. Going out, Bai Gang took out the appointment letter and looked at it. In fact, it was a symbolic little book. The guards didn't check it, they just scanned the iris directly. Bai Gang was assigned to the exploration unit in the Special Service Force, which was exactly what he wanted. The basic structure of the exploration troop is relatively small, each team has only 5 people including the captain, and now there are only 12 teams in total, and Bai Gang is in charge of a team of 5. Don't look at the mere 5 people, but all the teams of the exploration force are directly under the Secret Service Command, and there is no higher level military establishment, so the position of the captain is very important. The reason why the size of the basic combat unit is set so small is also based on the special situation of Stormwind Base. First, the matter of the different planes is too secret, and there are not many people who can enter the Storm Base, so the available manpower is naturally not enough. Second, the Storm Base in the early stage of its establishment did not consider the combat mission of large-scale operations, and the exploration troops said plainly it is an armed expedition team, and people are not expensive. Thirdly, there are logistical pressures. The current plane door is not very stable, and there will be frequent fluctuations. Too many people in the other world will be very logistical pressure. Big. Continuing to look at the documents, Bai Gang noticed his military rank 2 bars and 1 star. It is reasonable to say that he is a major, but the background color of the epaulets is pure black, which is not found in the army, and there is an abstract image of Quafu chasing the sun next to it. Although he knew about these things in his previous life, Bai Gang still felt quite awkward when he saw the documents in his hand. The previous rumors are indeed true. A major only leads 4 soldiers, and the exploration troops really take the treatment of pilots to support infantry. Oh, no, at least the 4 of them must be a lieutenant. This is a major with 4 lieutenants. In his previous life, Bai Gang had heard that the exploration troop in the early days of the Storm Base was insane. Of course, there is no need to say more about military skills. Without 2 brushes, even a resume cannot be screened at all. Starting with a full-time undergraduate degree, the mixed diploma will be invalid. In fact, not only the exploration troops, but the entire Stormwind Base can be said to be an elite concentration camp. High military rank, higher welfare and allowances, and a series of privileges can be enjoyed when returning to Earth on vacation. This situation will not change quickly until a conflict with the undead breaks out. The main task of the base has changed from scientific research and exploration to war, and a large number of ordinary troops have poured in. After receiving the certificate, Bai Gang went to pick up his own equipment. Unlike ordinary troops, members of the exploration team have the right to choose equipment according to their own preferences, although the types of weapons available in the base are really not rich, all domestically produced goods, but it's a privilege anyway. There are not many requirements for weapons white steel. Anyway, the weapons currently equipped at the base are designed to kill humans, and they are not very easy to use on the undead, so I simply chose the most familiar Type 95 assault rifle and Type 92 pistol. Although these 2 types of guns have been criticized by military fans, in all fairness, it is only because of different evaluation standards. If China is likely to face a combat environment, it is still quite good. Designing weapons is actually not much different from designing clothing. The first step is to determine the target population/combat environment. It is meaningless to compare any kind of weapon without the large combat environment. Xiao Xianruo looks very handsome and eye-catching in trendy clothes, but in a working environment, lawyers and white-collar workers wear such clothes because they feel uncomfortable. They have to wear formal clothes. Almost everyone needs formal clothes, but you can't wear them on the basketball court, otherwise there may be well-meaning people calling the mental hospital for help. The same goes for weapons. The EU army is small and sophisticated, while the army of country A is perverted. At the same time, they have a large number of peacekeeping, rogue, tasks. It is almost impossible to use heavy equipment on the ground for this kind of task. Only the infantry can play the leading role. Naturally, it takes a lot of effort to arm the infantry to the teeth. Anyway, the military expenditure of their economic level and the size of the army is not large. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. The Huiguo Army's combat ideas are in the same line as the S series, and there is a superpower behind the potential combat targets. The military is always facing the danger of hitting the dog and provoking the owner. In this environment, the status of infantry is naturally far lower than that of heavy equipment such as missiles, fighter planes, and tanks. In addition, China has little interest in being a hooligan before solving the surrounding problems. Unlike country A, there are a lot of local wars and special operations that cannot use heavy equipment and must carry rifles. If there is no demand, naturally they will not think too much about guns. Extended application of accessories. After all, in the combat environment predetermined by the military, these bells and whistles are not very useful and expensive, and the price of the night vision device is higher than the price of the gun itself. The country has a lot of military expenditures, but there are more projects to be fed. It is impossible to see the priority of gadgets such as firearms. These can be seen from the upgrading of weapons in various countries. Country A's update of individual weapons and light-fast anti-equipment has never been interrupted, and it has almost turned the soldiers of Country A into interstellar infantry, but what about those traditional land warfare backbones? How many years has it been since the M1 series main battle tanks changed? Why were the Crusaders' self-propelled artillery chopped down? Why did the Comanche helicopter dismount? To put it bluntly, isn't the combat environment that the US military has set for itself changed? On the other hand, Huiguo is just the opposite. All kinds of light weapons are basically enough, and heavy equipment is used to make dumplings. The Chinese army is lagging behind in all aspects. Why not learn from the US imperialists and give priority to the development of the fast reaction force? Or combat environment? Although they are only issued ordinary domestic weapons by gang and their identities are different, so they will not be ordinary high-quality goods. The materials and workmanship do not have to be selected, so they are relatively safe to use. After picking out the gun, I got my personal belongings. Next, I looked at the dormitory. The housing of the exploration troops is allocated according to the team. Each combat team has an independent suite. The captain has a room by himself, and the remaining 4 people share a room for every 2 people. There is a public living room and conference room, toilet and bathroom. Yes, very life, very not the army. The reason is that the exploratory troops almost all perform their tasks independently, and each team has a different routine. It is impossible to forcibly squeeze them together. It is simply a more flexible form of this suite. Moreover, living in another world, this lifelike environment is also conducive to relieve tension. After lunch, it was time for the meeting. When Bai Gang walked into the conference room, there were already 7 or 8 people sitting in it. He nodded to a few people he knew to say hello, and Bai Gang stopped talking. He found a place at random and sat down while playing with his pad while waiting for the meeting to start. Although the plane gate connecting the 2 worlds is large enough to accommodate the 4 rails in the Tien-shaped configuration running at the same time, but because it is not stable enough, there will be fluctuations from time to time, causing transportation interruptions. In fact, the transportation capacity is still very tight and can be saved. Space has to be saved. Therefore, from the very beginning, Baofeng Base has fully implemented a paperless office, and one pad per person has become one of the most important personal equipment. Because there is no supporting base station, the Earth's mobile phone has become a veritable game console here. Whether it is private communication between team members or various orders in formal occasions, the pad specially distributed by the base is inseparable. On the first day of promotion, Bai Gang realized the punctuality of his immediate boss. He said that he would arrive at 3 o'clock for a meeting at 3 o'clock, and it was not bad for a second. When the clock showed 3 o'clock, he just pushed in the door. The people who came in seemed to be in their 40s at most, with neatly trimmed hair, wearing spectacles, and looking polite. They were more like white-collar workers in the financial industry than soldiers. However, what is even more surprising is the Major General's epaulets on his unremarkable training uniform. That outfit, he's a Major General. Major General? How old is he, can't he? That's right, he looks like he's in his 30s at most, how could he be a Major General? The Kwafa group is not an army, and the military rank is something they play with internally, and others will not recognize it when they go out, but this does not mean that the rank of generals can be sold wholesale. Cough. Hearing the following discussion, Major General Le coughed, and when the people below stopped talking, he cleared his throat. There was no nonsense, and he went straight to the topic. Since everyone has already arrived, let's start. This time we have gathered everyone for one purpose: to pick people. Although I have never touched a gun, I know that as long as a leader wants to have a few helpful helpers, it is human nature. As you know, the people who can come here are all good, but they will inevitably have a little temper. If a captain is too weak and can't be overwhelmed, he will definitely scold me behind his back, and the people sent may not be in line with the captain's battle. You are used to it, so it is up to you to choose the words of the personnel. Although there was no obvious expression on Major General Lee's face, the emphasis on what he just said, coupled with this expressionless face, was unusual hesitant. He actually became a general without touching a gun. This is deliberately making a group laugh at these guys who have climbed up step by step after 100 battles. Also, to dare to say that we captains are weak, this is definitely a shame. We can't hold back those thorns? It's just a joke. The 12 captains, including Bai Gang, didn't care and even had some vague expectations. As the so-called arrogant general, who has the ability to have no temper. Anyway, if you have your own control, you are not afraid of these thorns. Well, none of the captains felt that they would not be able to overpower those thorns. Those who can become captains still have this confidence. But at least one thing Major General Le is really worried about. The captain is like the coach of a team, who decides the team's tactical style. The person who chooses must naturally match his own habits. But the number of people to choose from is limited after all, and good talents must be grabbed. So everyone looked at each other with a hint of vigilance in their eyes, and the smell of gunpowder began to slowly permeate the room. Major General Le smiled slightly. You don't need this expression, and it's not for you to compete. This time the selection is absolutely fair. I have sent the detailed information of the personnel to your pad. Let's take a look first, familiarize yourself with it, and wait until you've eaten it. Let's start picking people after dinner. I'll be here to accompany everyone during the period. If you don't understand anything, you can ask directly. In fact, everyone wanted to ask how to pick someone, but since Major General Le didn't mean to mention it at all, obviously it wasn't the time to say it, so naturally no one asked any more. A team of 5 people, in addition to the captain, need to pick 4 more. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Others do not know how to match Bai Gang, but he has his own ideas, simple and practical selection methods. I spent an afternoon looking over the information of all the staff carefully, and when the meeting started again after dinner, everyone had already circled a few goals in their hearts. Just when the captains were gearing up, Major General Le mysteriously took a box and came out and shook it. Everyone, Let's cast lots. After arguing for a long time, it was actually a lottery. Well, if you cast lots, you will cast lots. Whoever comes first will have to look at his face. Naturally, there is nothing to complain about. Everyone lined up to draw lots one by one. Bai Gang picked the number 9, which he liked very much, but he was a little behind. There were only 12 teams in total. After Major General Le entered each person's corresponding number into the computer, the order of picking people appeared on the big screen first. Choose a round from number 1 to number 12 according to the order of drawing lots, and then reverse from number 12 to number 1. 1 round, so choose 4 rounds to complete the selection. In theory, this choice is fair. Although the captain who touches number 1 can be the first to choose, he must endure the last pick in the 4th round, while the tough number 12 can choose 2 consecutively in the last of the first round and the first of the second round. The candidates are definitely not so top-notch, but the strength of the team members is more average, and because it is a continuous selection, it is easier to match the manned roles, not to mention that the number of candidates is not very small, there are close to 100, and the elimination rate is about 50%, or there is room for choice. Of course, this is only theoretical. In fact, when you are drooling while watching a candidate team member, you are robbed of love by the sword in front of you. Who can calm down? But if you are angry but can't be angry, who let the order be drawn by lot? Who can you blame for your arrest?